Hello, my name is Franz Joseph B. of Sena, and I'm here to present to you the top 5 rankings of philosophical ethics that I wanted to share. So, starting from number 5 was John Rawls' Theory of Justice. John Rawls' theory of justice as fairness, society must agree on just distribution of rights, liberties, opportunities, wealth, and income as the foundation for each of its members. Participation in social cooperation in which people work together to produce more to meet basic needs than they could independently. The guidelines governing this allocation are permanent social structures that exist from one generation to the next. The regulations cannot take into consideration the unique opinions or preference of every individual because they apply to everyone and future generations. What works for one person at one time could not work for another at a later date. Rawls considers a thought experiment in which representatives decide the rules of society on their behalf without knowing the circumstances of any individual, the generation they represent, or the unique economic conditions of their economy. The goal is to determine what rules governing social cooperation can be accepted by all by putting aside their particular beliefs and interests. They are aware that people desire to know what is right, are thinking clearly, and are able to logically pursue their goals, changing them if required. And that's how I thought about Theory of Justice by John Rawls. So second was number 4, named Immanuel Kant. So following the law's requirements is how Immanuel Kant defines virtue. Why? Well, let's say I violate one of Kant's majorities, like don't lie. Kant was considered that if my behavior were made universal such that everyone imitated me, we would all start lying to one another and society would collapse. The key question for Kant is whether something can be universalized. It's actually rather easy if everyone abides by the law, therefore that passes the test. Regarding whether it was always appropriate to respect the law, we can disagree with Kant. The ontology appears to me to lack certain really human components, and I always believe that ethics should be about what is most distinctively human. So next, what I'm on a ranking now about to share from was rank number 3, Stuart Mill. So Stuart Mill describes about utilitarianism that justify an individual's freedom in opposed to a restricted government and social control. Yes, classical liberalism has improved, and he made significant contributions to social philosophy, philosophical theory, and political economics. But do we all need to improve our knowledge of how pleasure and pain relate to self-awareness? Perhaps some has to be included along with some revisions on devotional service, detachment from pleasure and suffering, success and failure. If it's done properly, our chances of discovering that elusive concept known as happiness will be increased. That's what I thought about Stuart Mill of utilitarianism. The rank number 2 was Aquinas. So Aquinas wrote prolifically on our national law. Yeah, he may state that the light of reason is put by nature in every man to guide him in his deeds, but as a result, humans are the only creatures among God's creatures that utilize reason to govern their lives. This is a natural law. Aquinas claimed that reason exposes specific natural principles that are good for people such as self-preservation, marriage, and family, and desire to know God. So the reason he also said permits that in every individual to comprehend moral acts such as adultery, suicide, and lying can be immoral if immoral, and we must able to follow natural law. So that's how I thought about Aquinas, the natural law. And the last but not the least was the rank number 1, Aristotle, Virtue of Ethics. So Aristotle stated that virtue of ethics places more emphasis on moral character than on behavior. What does the life has been properly lived look like? Is a vital question. The solution to such topic will inevitably involve examining characters, whether they are well-developed characters from excellent literature or real-life role models or hypothetical ideal people. What characteristics characterize a person leading a moral and ethical life? The virtues are as follows, although most virtues ethicists, in my experience, don't spend much time actually outlining the virtues. Those that are mentioned in examples are the same ones that our mothers and other moral educators push upon us as we were growing up and throughout our lives, qualities like courage, self-control, compassion, honesty, virtue, etc., that we have in our own moral virtue. So that's about it about philosophical ethics. Stay tuned from global ethical issues.